On Two Wheels this week, Wayne's Warehouse travels to a trade fair in Yorkshire. Wayne meets up with a new importer and distributor of motorcycle goods. Richard Hammond continues his tour of the Scottish Highlands and Islands. And this week, Jeff's Technical Talk explains suspension and damping. But first, we're off to Suffolk to a classic bike show.
"11 years ago, a group of mates from Copdock in Suffolk went to a motorcycle show. And they enjoyed the day, it was quite impressive, but they decided that they could do better. A year later, they came to this village hall and had a show of their own. 1,000 people turned up, but only 30 motorbikes. But it didn't end there.
It certainly didn't, because here we are now at the 10th Copdock Classic Bike Show, and that's not easy to say on a Sunday morning after a night out in Ipswich, believe me, but that's another story, you don't want to know about that. Last year they had 8,500 people visit this show and they had 3,000 bikes on view. This year, as long as it stays dry, promises to be even bigger and better. So come along with us and enjoy. Now you're looking at this, aren't you? A Tricati. Hey, there's a name to cut. That's a name that I'd never heard of, I have to confess. But what this is, basically, this started life as a Ducati road bike. And what happened was the engines used to go bang, so the engines blow up. And of course, there's a surplus, or there used to be a surplus, of Triumph engines many years ago. So what they did is they put a Triumph engine in a Ducati bike and they called it the Tricati. Simple, isn't it, really? Dead obvious. And these really were one of the cafe races of the late 50s, and they were pretty good. Not quite as good as a Triton, but they weren't bad. This one has had a full engine rebuild, Triumph 350cc motor there. It's only done 84 miles since it was completely rebuilt. It runs beautifully, and it could be yours for 800 quid.
If you own a classic bike, then you've really got to look the part, and it's places like this that you can find gear. Aren't they incredible? They look superb, don't they? Like an eggshell on your head. I found this one as well, and I think for the gear that I'm wearing today, this one might actually suit me down to the ground. What do you think of that? Bit small, isn't it? Never mind. But pretty good, hey, not too bad at all. The problem with this is they're not very comfortable for a start. And there's certainly no BSI sticker, so heaven knows how protected they'll be. Not bad, though.
Now, I have a problem with some of these bikes in these shows because some of these beautiful creations turn up with all the fancy paint jobs and loads of chrome, but they come on the back of trucks, some of them. They come covered up, they don't even get ridden here. But this particular bike, this fantastic Harley Davidson, I can tell you, was sat outside the hotel where I stayed last night in the pouring rain. The weather was atrocious and it was there, not covered up, so it does get ridden. And this is the man that rides it, Paul. Come here, Paul. It's very impressive. What class is this entered in here then today?
It's in factory custom.
Factory custom?
Yeah.
Right. I'm not don't know anything about Harleys. I get confused with all these FXs and all these numbers and models. So what is it, this?
This is the Road King.
Right.
Fuel injection overdrive.
You bought this as a stock bike?
Stock bike, yes. I've just added all the extra chrome bits to it myself.
There's a lot of money in this, I can tell that. How much is the stock bike?
Stock bike is 12,700.
Right, 12,700.
Yeah.
Any idea where you're up to now?
About 17,000.
Dear me. And what impressed me was it was set out in the pouring rain last night. So you do ride it, you got a lot of miles on it?
We ride it all over Europe, all the time we can, weekends mainly.
Right.
But all the time we can get on the road, we ride them, yeah.
Because it's about 3-year-old now?
It's nearly 4 years old now.
4 years old? It looks like it's just been built to me. It's gorgeous. And how many miles have you done on it?
18,000.
18? Well, that's good. That's a credit to you, mate. And I understand you had a bit of success here last year in this class?
Yes, I won the section for factory custom last year.
Oh, yeah. So you're feeling confident then?
Well, we'll see.
You've got some stiff competition here,
We
mate.
have. There's some lovely, beautiful bikes here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, well, good luck. It's a credit to you, and keep riding it, mate.
Thanks very much.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Now here's something for all you lads with your fancy sports bikes. Just listen up, this should interest you, this, because if you've got a fancy sports bike, you're frightened to death of dropping it, aren't you? If it falls off its stand just onto the side, it could cost you several £100s to get it repaired. And you won't even think of going on a track day, because if you sling it down the track, it costs you thousands of pounds to put it right. Well, these people, J&P from Skegness, they sell these kind of things, which are replica body kits. And they've got all sorts here, CBR 600 there, blades, GSXR, they've even got a full kit for the new GSXR 1000, would you believe? And here's the fairing, and you can have a full kit with the seat and everything. Look at this one here, CBR 600 for 195 quid. That's the full kit, 195 quid. So if you're going on your track days, you stick one of these on. You don't have to paint it, doesn't matter. You're on a racetrack, nobody cares. You don't need lights or indicators on a racetrack, none of that business. 200 quid, almost worth crashing for.
Here at the Classic Bike Show in Copdock, that we're going to leave it for now, and we'll see you next week for a lot more.
And so it loomed. Our penultimate day was upon us and the end of our tour was in sight. Although a touch saddened by the prospect, there was no time to dwell upon it, as Peter explains.
Day 5. After our Ceilidh, we are heading off south from Kershaw, right down the glens, all these spectacular glens, Torridons and so on and so forth. But we do come to one Pacific road which is worth going to visit, and that's the Bealoch. The Bealoch is one of our highest roads up here, 2,050 feet in 6 miles, spectacular. Backing down there, then there's a nice lunch, and heading south all the way. We're doing a lot of miles today. We're heading all the way south, down to the south of Loch Ness, and right down here, down to Fort William, and we end up down at Onich, which is another nice stop.
First stop today was at a rather large, twisty and, frankly, quite scary hill, at the top of which I managed to get Peter to tell me what it was called.
Bealoch.
Bealoch Moor.
Yes, the Pass of the Cattle.
And this is a very, very old road.
This is a very old road, an old droving road, and it's the old road into Applecross, which is, what we've ridden up is 2,050 feet from sea level in 6 miles.
And they brought cattle up here?
They brought cattle over here, and it's called the Pass of the Cattle. Now, in the winter time, it's permanently blocked, so they've just built a new road round the coast, which makes the Applecross more accessible. But
And
it's something else.
And it's colder up here.
Yes,
already,
you can.
On what is a summer's day?
Summer's day, and you can feel the change in temperature up here. Yeah.
And this is quite well known amongst bikers. This is a
Oh yes,
road.
this is a road that all bikers would like to do at some stage in their life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With a fully laden bike, it can be a bit of a challenge. It's very, very twisty, but a fantastic place nevertheless.
Yeah, very twisty.
And from here, well, it's not a bad hole for you, is it, really?
Well, you can see the Isle of Skye, MacLeod's Table over here. You can see right down for 50 miles on a clear day. In fact, you can just about see it today. Ardnamurchan Point, the peninsula that we sailed past, the furthest point west in the British mainland.
Well, we got up here.
Uh-huh.
How do we get down?
Well, Richard, just to let you know that we're going to go back right down this road again.
Okay, that'll be first gear then.
Yes. How can you put your 2 feet out?
Like that, I think.
And believe me, it really was first gear all the way. It's time for a touring tip. And I've been dying to talk about these all week. Jim's boots, because they're fantastic. These are like nothing I've ever seen, certainly. They're not like these ordinary, boring modern ones. What are they?
They're boots.
Well,
Gold
yeah.
top boots, yes. I've had them for about 20 years. And they're not as waterproof as your boots.
No, but I have noticed that every evening you scurry off and polish them, and every
Yes.
morning they look immaculate, even
That's
if they've
right.
got all wet. So you look after these things?
Look after the boots if you look after them, but there's one way you can't get them wet.
Right.
So there is sort of rubber over boots you can buy,
Yeah.
which I have here. which is absolutely excellent for it, but the biggest problem is getting them on. So my tip is, you get a plastic bag.
Now this is one that you just discovered when you
That's
trying to
right. I
struggle
got a
into
hole.
this.
What actually happened is I got a hole in one of these, and as you can see, and decided, well, the best thing is to put the plastic bag on first. It's got to be a shiny plastic bag. Can't be any other else than a shiny one. So you just put it on your foot like so.
It's very elegant, Jim.
Oh, of
Looks
course,
nice.
yes. All right, smart.
But this actually makes it easy to get the thing on.
Yeah, that's it. So the boot's on.
Very
That's
chic.
good. And you can also do a similar thing with a plastic bag if you have a waterproof.
Your waterproof oversuit on your jeans.
Correct.
Which can
Just
be
put them on the
nightmare.
put your boot in the plastic bag and put it straight through the boot.
Et
So
voila.
there you go.
Most of today was spent chewing up the miles. However, we thought it only right to pay our respects to the Commando Monument near Fort William. This enormous statue was erected in memory of those who gave their lives in World War II. A truly fitting gesture, I'm sure you'll agree. As we journeyed to the last hotel on our list before Linlithgow, the group seemed to be a touch melancholic at the idea. Upon arrival, Peter assured us that the trip wasn't over yet, and as the day ended, the question begged, just what would we see tomorrow, our last day?
Hello, I'm Jeff Thompson from the Manchester Rossborough Advanced Motorcycle Group. Most people, when they approach a corner which requires a low gear, change sequentially from the high gear they're in when they see the hazard, down through the gears in sequence until they get to the gear they require. This necessitates braking and changing gear over quite a long distance as you approach a corner. It means you have to start slowing earlier than you perhaps might want to. There is an alternative, much neater and slicker way of doing this, and that's known as block changing. What you do is you change from the high gear you're in, say fifth, straight down to second gear all in one go. Of course, you have to get your speed off first, so you use your brakes on the approach to the corner to get down to the speed you require, and then in one movement you pull the clutch in and operating your foot 3 or 4 times change from the high gear into the low. So it's clutch in, say 5, 4, 3, 2, clutch out, and you're ready to power through the corner in the correct gear. On approach to our corner, we brake firmly down to the right speed first, then pull the clutch in, then change directly from high gear, 5, 4, 3, 2, clutch out, ready to power through the corner.
And still to come after the break, Wayne meets a new importer of motorcycle goods, and in Jeff Tech Talk we learn about suspension.
Now, have you ever thought to yourself, when you go in that there motorcycle accessory shop and see them shiny helmets on the shelf and those fancy leathers, how on earth did they get there? Because they probably travelled an awful long way. May have well come from somewhere in Europe or even in the Far East. Well, I'm going to tell you a little story in a short while as how they get there, what procedure they take to land on the dealer shelves. But you may be curious to know why I'm stood by a push bike. Certainly a push bike that's worth just under 4,000 quid, which is the price of a Suzuki Bandit. Good Lord. Well, it's a downhill mountain bike, and there is indeed a link with push bikes and motorcycles, and I'll tell you about that in a short while. Meanwhile, I just need to go and find myself a hill. That'll be a very small hill, I can assure you. Well, to be honest with you, they took the push bike off me. I can't imagine why. I've not got a reputation for falling off push bikes, just motorcycles. But at a value of over 4,000 quid, can't blame them anyway. So, I did mention a link between the cycle world and the motorcycle world. Well, there is. This is evident, isn't it? Lock and chains. But these are products that are produced and designed for cycles. But there is quite a link. There's no doubt about it. Cyclists wear crash helmets. In fact, Bell, and they're over here, they're a reputable company in both the motorcycle and the cycle world for crash helmets and cycle helmets such as these. There's loads of other brands as well that are linked as well. Continental Tyres, for example, Mavic Wheels, loads of links between cycles and motorcycles. Do you know, there's absolutely loads of importers and distributors. Well, there would be, wouldn't there, because there's blinking loads of products on the shelf for you guys to buy out there. I mean, take, for example, Tran-Am. Tran-Am are people who import Bell helmets and Gay Ernie boots, Joe Rocket clothing and leathers. Then, of course, there's Ferridax. They're the people who import the Shoei helmets and also City clothing and City boots. There's who else? Let me think. The guys who do Bell Staff, for example, they're Phoenix distribution. They also do RI helmets. There's flaming loads of importers and distributors. And then there's the new boys, the new kid on the block, Madison Power Sports. They do these fancy sports socks for inside your bike boots, SPS brake pads, fancy lubrication kits, even these over here, which is a new battery tender, a new recharger for your battery, make good of the old knackered one. But that's not the only thing they do. They've decided to bring in a new fancy product, and that is M. Robert and also Premier helmets, and they're over here. Two different names, but in actual fact, the same brand, the same manufacturer. And in fact, Premier motocross helmets are still imported in this country by a company called Bert Harkins, and he's the man behind the Scott goggles and other things for off-road use. But Premier now, here in a road helmet, built and constructed in their fancy high-tech factory over in Italy. And they are a rather tasty bit of kit. So let's start with this fella over here, the Formula Mono and LX. So here we go. This is the Formula model, Formula LX, the painted version, costs you £140. And then there's a plain coloured one, the Mono, and that's only 120 quid. What do you get for your money? Well, you get obviously the complex lamination with the carbon fibre and Kevlar and Dyneema, so obviously that's a high-tech bit of shell to construct the helmet. You get a removable washable liner. Now, and that's not just unique with this helmet at 140 quid. Oh no, you can actually get the removable washable liner in an M. Robert model, the lower sort of price category version. You get it in a £60 helmet where you can remove and wash the liner, and I think that's really good value for money. It's a flush fitting visor, and in this case a black one. They obviously come with a clear one. Oh yes, we don't break the law, do we? No, children. And that flush fitting visor is a really nice mechanism, a really good ratchet on it, and it's also easy to remove as well. It's just one little lever here, and that will remove the visor nice and easy, and it's also adjustable. The side pod will adjust, and it'll allow you to put the visor nice and tight against the rubber seal here, making it a nice and quiet helmet. And we need a bit of quietness on the bikes. We all hate noisy helmets. There's no need for it anymore. So that's a helmet model that will cost you 120 for the plain, 140 for the fancy colour version. They do more expensive versions, but they also do a slightly less costly one, and even a helmet for just around 50 quid. Now, we can't exactly go on about a new importership and a new distributor without talking to the Commander-in-Chief himself, Adrien Phillips. Now, Adrien, tell us a little bit about Madison and where have you come from?
Okay, Madison's initially a bicycle business that was started over 20 years ago, and we're a huge distribution business, basically shipping helmets, locks, brake pads, bicycles out to that industry. 2 years ago, we started to look at other industries that we could maybe move the business into, as we have a huge purpose-built distribution facility. So it didn't take very long for us to realise that the motorcycle market has a very good synergy with the bicycle market. Helmets, locks, oils, brake pads.
Yeah, there's quite a considerable overlap, isn't there, really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In not only but product types, but product brands as well. There's an awful lot of people who produce products for the cycle industry who are doing similar products for the motorcycle industry. And another side of it is the fact that you guys, you at the helm, yourself, and the sales force are all interested in motorcycles as well, aren't you?
Yeah, that's true. We all ride. Even some of our bicycle sales guys are all motorcyclists as well. So there's a huge interest, and obviously the more products I keep getting in and whatever, we've got a big demand in-house, let alone out there on the street.
Suspension, eh? Where would we be without it? But what goes into suspension? What's in these fork legs? What's in the rear? Well, come with me and I'll show you. Okay, but before we get into the nitty-gritty of actually doing adjustments, let's talk about some basic principles. So if you already know it, excuse me, it won't take long. See this, I've knocked this up just to show. I've got a bolt there with a spring on it. If that was your basic suspension with absolutely no damping whatsoever, this is what would happen. You'd have suspension, but you'd bounce up and down. Wouldn't be very clever. Terrible for handling as well. What you need to do is hydraulically damp that. And by damp, we don't mean using water. We're going to use oil. Oil gives you lubrication of parts, and it's got a certain viscosity to it, which is far better than using water. Forks would go rusty anyway. With this oil pump here, I've put a spring around the handle there, and see that just bounces up and down just like that one did. But if we draw up some oil in this is ordinary engine oil, but it just shows the principle. There we go. Then I put my finger over the end to give it some control. When you push down, see the way that changes, stiffer to put down and also slower to come back. That's your damping. But let's put that out. That's all very well. What do we mean in the real world? Here we have a fork leg. This one quite sophisticated because you've got your adjustments actually for your compression damping down the bottom and your rebound damping at the top. On this one I've actually slackened both screws well off. So that one's off there and the top one is. Now if I push that down, just like that little demo, see how easy it goes down, and it also flies back. If I now clink this up, and it's got little clickers on there, you can probably hear those going around. It's important to count the clicks when you are messing around with that, but I'm going to bang that one right in. Look at that, you can even hear the table creaking. That's really stiffened that up. So that's your compression damping. Rebound, we go to this top part here. Little screw on the top there, you've all seen this. Again, you can hear the little clicks, count the clicks. I'm going to wind that one right down, so that's maximum. You see what happens here. See how slow that is to come back? So that's your rebound damping. The last bit that you hear about is preload. Now preload just refers to the spring alone. So in there, there's a big spring, just like this one on here, and what you're doing is actually preloading it, putting some tension in it before you start. And so you use this part at the top here, this upper bit, clamp that down, and you actually compress the spring and preload it before you even hit a bump.
And on Two Wheels next week, there's more tech talk from Jeff. Richard Hammond concludes his tour of the Scottish Highlands and Islands, and we return to Suffolk for more from this year's Copdock Classic Bike Show.